Fact or fiction, you ready to play? Fact or fiction? Grab a slice. Tell me what you know. Goblins in the kitchen. Fact or fiction? Roll the dice. The game's about to blow. Let's go.
Welcome to Fact or Fiction, a podcast about Magic the Gathering's greatest format, pre-modern. I'm Neal Sacks, joined by ELD monthly champion Chris Roy off of his win and back-to-back top nines. Chris, how's everything going this week?
Thank you, Neal. Appreciate that. But I think you're leaving something out. You actually was crowned the hero of New England because this past weekend you went into enemy territory into New York and you took down everybody and you won the Sacred Torch Showdown. So congratulations.
Yeah, we talked about it on last week's podcast where we discussed our tournament, the Duress Crew Regional, and said, oh, New York came into our tournament and now we got to send a couple people from Massachusetts down there to take it back from there in their house. I'm going to be honest, I didn't think that was going to be me self-fulfilling that prophecy, but I'm not going to lie, it feels pretty awesome. I appreciate you mentioning that as well, too. It was a really fun tournament. Absolutely.
It's not just us, though. We actually are joined by a couple of special guests today. So we have another member of Squee's House of Pizza, Sam White. Sam, say hello.
Let's go. Hello, guys. I'm here. I'm going to hopefully be on more, and I'm ready to roll.
Sam is our Terrageddon master. He is an actual wizard with that deck. We've played several times. I don't think I've ever beaten him. Doesn't matter what deck I play. I think the only time I came close was when I was playing Sligh and he thought I was on Terrageddon and kept a hand that did not deal with Sligh, but then he got me in games 2 and 3.
I remember they were nail biters as well, too, where I had to do the classic destroy my own mocks, I think, with Naturalize for Nimble Mongoose Threshold. It's always a fun one.
Absolutely.
Right. But it's not just that. We're also joined by a very special guest, member of the Duress Crew, the one, the only, Shane Echevarria. Shane is going to be talking with us about a number of things. Most importantly, DuressFest and how we got to make it happen.
Hey, everybody. Happy to be here. Happy to speak to the, it pains me to say this, but the most talented pre-modern crew in New England.
Appreciate that. Yeah, we're just, this quarter, I actually think is going to be a lot tougher. We had a pretty good start, but the gap is not as much as you would think. So I think a lot of people are feeling that they don't want the same team sweeping all 4 quarters and are stepping up. That's the great thing about this community and the tournament scene. So I think we're going to have a lot cut out for us, but I appreciate those kind words.
When Hodge launched the Crew Crash League, they were like, who do you predict as winners? And he's talking through these. I was like, no, it's Shops. He's like, no, like your team. And I'm like, Duress Crew has many members, so our talent is split. And even if it wasn't, we don't play in our quarterlies.
That's
really.
a good point. Have we looked
or Lobster Con?
Have we looked at what it would be like if we adjusted and taken those tournaments out? Because I'm curious if it would be like closer, if you guys would be ahead of us. It'd be interesting.
I don't even think we'd be ahead. It'd be closer, certainly, because at ELDs, myself and Aiden put up results this year. I believe Ben also put up some decent results in the early.
Ben had like back-to-back top 8s with Sligh, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, and Aiden's had a few this year as well. So it'd be closer, but again, hats off. You guys are going to sweep.
We'll see. I don't like to...
This weekend, yeah. Heading into Zoo Crew, Shoe City event. That's going to be tough. I'm pretty sure there'll probably be a bounty or 2 on us. Who knows?
All I know is Phil has been very vocal about his newfound distaste for us is the word I'll use. So it will be pretty sweet to go into his house and
that means you're successful as a crew if Phil hates
absolutely.
you.
Cool. I know the reason you're on, Shane, is to talk about DuressFest and give us some details on that. I recently just backed it as well, too, after listening to your most recent episode of Hardcast and hearing everything about that. So I think it would be cool if we could get some more information out to the people and make this happen and have the largest pre-modern tournament in the history of the format.
Absolutely. Again, thank you for having me. And that's what we're attempting to do here. We'd like to run the largest pre-modern tournament in history. But keeping that in mind, this is the spiritual successor to LobsterCon. We want the vibes to very much feel like it's LobsterCon, just in a bigger venue. As all of you, LobsterCon is amazing, but we've outgrown the venue. The Dante is amazing. I wish it could seat 500, 600, 700 people, but we're probably pushing it with the 320 something we had last time.
It was tight quarters for sure, but
So
it was
that-
still awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Loved it. I didn't play a game of Magic the entire event, and some of the best Magic event I ever went to. With that in mind, this is a player organized event. None of us are making money off this. We are all grinding away trying to get this Kickstarter launched. It can be found at DuressFest.com. Right now, we're looking at about 60% to goal, which by most metrics is roughly where you want to be if you want to successfully launch your Kickstarter. But this project is all or nothing. So we meet our goal, and we have the biggest, most awesome pre-modern tournament of all time, or we don't, and we have a fallback plan, but it's less robust.
So where are you guys at with the goal right now?
As of a few hours ago, we were at 59K and change out of the 100K goal. So again, roughly 60% within the first 10 days is where you want to be statistically for a Kickstarter, but we're right on the edge. If you're showing those metrics, you'll be successful most of the time, but it's not all the time. So we're definitely having a drive to make sure that all pre-modern players are aware of it and take a look at it at least, DuressFest.com, and see if that's something you'd be interested in. We're taking signups. There's different tiers. We have different rewards. And again, the most important thing is we're trying to capture the essence of LobsterCon, and we're doing everything possible to maintain that feel.
Hey, can you tell us a little bit more about the tiers they mentioned?
Absolutely, absolutely. We offer multiple ways to support the project. You can always just donate money. That's an option. We don't expect that, but that is available. Next step up is for $25, I believe. We'll send you some of our stamp cards, the cards that we'll be handing out to everyone at the event. You can get a set of those for $25. At the $135 bracket, you purchase your ticket. That's for admission to the event. It covers admission to the main event, which will be a 2-day similar structure to LobsterCon. And at that tier, there's also add-ons. I don't know if you guys have, actually, I'm certain you guys have probably seen, but I haven't been keeping close attention to which teams have supported it. But we do have the crew map add-on. Has anyone seen that?
Actually, yeah, we've seen it, and we backed it for the color map. So Squee's House of Pizza
Maybe I'm
to step up and do the full crew pledge. So I think it's $500, and we're going to be getting ourselves on the map in color. And maybe in post, Brian, you could put out an example of what that would look like, if you know what I'm talking about. Brian's behind the scenes right now, recording, does all the production and everything.
And I was going to ask, like, where do you guys go on a map? You're all over the place, right?
We have a split between New Hampshire and Massachusetts, so that is going to be an interesting thing to figure out. That is a great point, Shane.
Excellent. We got plenty of time to figure it out and let us know. And then the last tier would be the baseball jersey. We do merch every year for LobsterCon. For DuressFest, we want to do an exclusive baseball jersey. And for $350, you get that plus your ticket to the event, which covers both days of the main event.
Awesome. I'm curious to see what those look like, because that sounds pretty awesome, and it'll be exclusive only for that. If you don't get it this time, you're kind of out of luck. So
Yeah, what's the
Correct.
What's the easiest way to go about this? Do you want me to just text you my bank login, or
send Bitcoin here to this
Yeah,
address.
sure. Absolutely. But again, it's all on Kickstarter at literal URL is DuressFest.com. It'll take you right there and you can make your pledge. We won't spoil the venue, but we've narrowed it down to a handful, and they're amazing. I can't oversell this enough. If we get the one that I, fingers crossed, hope that we get, you will be amazed. It will live up to the Dante. So I'm excited for it.
I really want to add something with regard to the crew sponsorship, where you can do 500 or 250 for a black and white map. If you've ever thought to yourselves as a crew, hey, we'd love to host an event sometime, but for whatever reason, there's not an LGS near you, or you just don't have whatever infrastructure in place, this is your chance to essentially help host a tournament. So 250, 500, it's a little bit, but if you think about what you're providing for the community, just the largest pre-modern event ever. So I really suggest that you look into it.
And you'll literally be putting your crew on the map.
Yeah, and then you divide that amongst your team. That seems like pretty reasonable as well too. So I think that's pretty cool, and I'm excited to see whatever mock up and figure out where we're going to put it from a state standpoint.
We're working on a bunch of other things, like we want to get food trucks available for food. We're working out the logistics of charity raffles. Kickstarter will not allow us to take charitable donations.
Saw that.
That's part of their platform. So we're going to have some type of charity element so we can contribute to our community as we always do. It's just a little bit more difficult this time because we can't take it straight out of the entrance fee as we did in previous years.
That makes sense. I understand that from the terms of service there, but at least you guys are actively looking for a way to make that happen in some other regard. And then hopefully, I know you mentioned in the future on your podcast that there will be potentially less restrictions down the line once we get this one off and running.
Absolutely. This one is it's a test. The community seemed to demand more space for pre-modern. So we're going to see if the demand is actually there. If it launches, great. We'll literally have the largest pre-modern tournament ever. It'll be by a large margin because I believe that last year's LobsterCon is currently the largest pre-modern tournament ever. And we're looking to double that.
Oh, wow.
So if we get this going, we're literally going to have the largest pre-modern probably tournament of all time. Hopefully we grow that with future iterations, but it'll definitely be the record breaker once we have it.
Amazing.
And we'll have a full bar, of course.
Of course.
It'll be like
absolutely. By full bar, we mean a full candy bar, of course. Wink.
Absolutely, for everybody.
Awesome. I have a question, and maybe you can't talk about it yet, but I'm gonna float it out there. I know there's side events at LobsterCon. Will there be a Classic Legacy side event?
So no side event is set in stone, but I would say Classic Legacy is definitely on the short list.
Yeah, that's something that we were talking about at the Boston Cube party a few weeks back. I went home, looked at it that night, and just bought a bunch of cards because of like, this looks amazing. This looks similar to pre-modern and how the games play, and I was really excited about that.
Yeah, feel free to cut this if this verges off topic too far, but we're actually having our first Classic Legacy event at Great Stories in Whitensville in about 2 weeks from now.
It will be.
So if
I
you're
will be
local
there.
to us and you want to get started for Classic Legacy, we're going to have it. It's going to be a store credit prize, plus some of the crew has actually thrown in some of their personal collection in order to get people out there. So we got a playset of Future Sight Tarmogoyf for first, foil Conflux Knight of the Reliquaries for second, and then third and fourth will each get a Jason the Mind Sculptor.
Well, I know people are tuning in here for pre-modern, but give Classic Legacy a look too, because it is pretty sweet.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any other questions about DuressFest? I am not Jay, who is our project manager. He could talk about this ad nauseum all day. I'm a little bit more curt in my response, and I apologize for that. But if you have any questions, I'm here to help.
This has been great, Shane. We really appreciate you coming on, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that this happens as well, too. If you're listening, and if you haven't backed it yet, why not? Go ahead. It's DuressFest.com. I'll repeat it another time, DuressFest.com.
Absolutely. And if for some reason you can't make it, our refund policy is going through the beginning of next year. and you have plenty of time if you determine, oh wait, the event we're doing, it's on my wife's birthday or it's my kid's graduation. We understand. Once we set the date, we'll give you time to get a refund if it does not work for you.
Before we move into the next section, I want to make sure we talk about my intro. I don't know if I'm a little too strong if we want to redo it.
I thought it was good. It showed some real emotion, and it kind of, I want to stir it up with New York a little bit. You can leave this part in because I think it's a really good budding rivalry, and they won our tournament. We won theirs. We got to keep it going, keep count, keep score, and get everyone invested in it.
Neal, just in case you're not aware, you were an honorary Duress Crew member. That
was
weekend.
awesome. There you go.
You were. Once you made top 8 and all of us were out, we're like, Neal is left from New England. He is an honorary Duress Crew member for the rest of the weekend.
I appreciate that.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I know the sport of everything.
We need him for CCO.
Of course. This event didn't count for
I understand.
So it's fine.
We're not looking to poach anybody. Just for that event, we're like, he is honorary Duress Crew. Please take down New York.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there were a bunch of the guys there. Obviously, Aiden was on commentary, and just having people stay and watch was pretty cool. Had my college roommate Anthony there. I actually stayed with him in Brooklyn, and it was just cool just to have a bunch of people there supporting, and then obviously all the people texting on the stream too. So here in honorary Duress Crew, I think that's pretty awesome, so I appreciate that.
I remember when the stream started, somebody that I'd helped with Terrageddon in the past, he was asking if I was at that event because I think he knew it was in New England, and I said, no, one of my teammates is there, and he's going to win it for me, so it's fine. And then it was easy peasy. It made him go all the way from there. I just know like that.
Chris sent a message on the Squee Discord with Goku with his hands up in the air saying, give Neal your energy for the spirit bomb. And I saw that right before, and I was like, this is awesome. I was laughing. It was great. And it really did feel like that somehow. But yeah, not to talk too much about me, though. We got a bunch of other people here, too, and a bunch of other topics to go over. We can get to Sacred Torch afterwards. But I think let's go in chronological order of kind of somehow some of the things happened. Let's go first with ELD. We've talked about that a few times. ELD's Time Vault in Bellingham, Massachusetts, home of the New England monthly tournament. We are currently joined by 2 people who made this past month's top 8 and 1 person who took the whole event down. That being Chris Roy as our champion and Sam White, our Terrageddon master, with another top 8 that he keeps racking up. So I'll hand it off to you guys. My tournament, I played Sligh, went to a 3-3 record, and my highlight of the tournament was doing the play-by-play for the finals on the phone because Hodge was in it, who normally does that. And I have to give him a lot of credit. That was one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever had to do in Magic, and it did not involve playing a game. Just typing really quickly, especially when one of the decks was the red deck and the turns weren't as slow or deliberate necessarily because the aggression was really there. I think there was one point where I typed Bloodstain more instead of Mire, and I was like, no, we just got to keep power through. We can't go back and fix that. So credit to Hodge. That was, he does it every single time, and he doesn't miss a beat. So
maybe we can start with me. I'm not going to go by round or anything, but just as a follow-up to the previous episode where we talked about me bubbling 9th place at the regional with a 502 record. Still unbelievable, but you're moving on.
Not salty about it, people.
Yes. The following week, we had the tournament at ELD. I didn't have time to test or anything, tweak during the week. Decided to just run back the same list, but with a mission this time. So at the regional, I had 2 unintentional draws. Now, I don't think it was because I was playing slowly or my opponents were playing slowly. I think the matchups, how the draws came out, that's just what happened. And sometimes that is the case. Nevertheless, I thought I don't want to leave anything to chance. I'm going to come in focused and ready to play as fast as I can while making really tough decisions. I am playing Psychatog. It's a good deck, but it's fair. A lot of tough decisions and trying to do it quickly. I needed to be laser focused and sharp. So got down to the store early, got some lunch ahead of time, which normally I don't do. I was good night's sleep, hydrated, all that stuff. I was ready to go. I didn't think that it would be just 1 week until I redeemed myself, but somehow I clutched it out and was part of not just a triple top 8 with the crew, a triple top 4, our first one. So myself in first, and then Sam and Brian in third and fourth. So that's pretty sick, and really happy about
awesome.
that.
And you had, I think, a pretty difficult first round opponent too, if I recall.
Yeah, actually, I played against you.
Oh, that's who it was.
Yeah,
I couldn't remember.
So you came into the event as the CCL Player of the Year point leader. Not who I wanted to sit across the table round 1, but I just edged you out in a 3-game set, real close.
I think it was more towards your side, but I appreciate you giving me a little bit of credit. It's a very tough matchup, and you played it very well. And you alluded with the CCL point. I think I'm slipped all the way down to 4th, and I think both you and Sam are ahead of me, and I think you're in 1st right now, if I recall.
No, I didn't check it. Actually, I checked it like 10 times.
Yeah, of course you did. We all did.
It's just a fun thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to hear from Sam, the Terrageddon Master, about his tournament and something else that recently came out.
Oh my god, that's me. The ELD, it was crazy because one thing is Chris was my only loss that tournament because I started, we were 6 rounds, so I think I started 4-0 and then drew twice. I was potentially even playing out the 6th round because I'm like, oh, I think I should be safe no matter what, but I might want to go for higher seeding. But then I think I talked about it with Hod, and we determined that I think I'd be fine, and I was, where I got to choose the play draw. And it was funny, though, because we talked about the triple top 8 with you, me, and Brian, but I faced Brian as well in the Swiss. And that seems to always happen when we're at ELD together. You always got to play against your teammate. And I'm pretty sure I was his only loss going in the top 8 too. So I'm like, hey, I told you we can get the rematch. We didn't get, but I'm like, I'll do it one day when I say that to people. Usually I say it and I'm like, it'd be cool if we do it, but it's hard to get that to happen, like statistically, but it can be close. But yes, Chris was the master. He was my one loss that day, and he also beat me, I remember still, once again, I think in top 4 in another monthly earlier this year too. So I gotta get my revenge. I guess I have beaten you once in the Swiss this year too, but that's not as special. You have the more badass victories.
The other one being the infamous 2-hour match, of course.
Yeah, like, I acknowledge, like, something that's good to know is I'm aware that sometimes I play slow and I try to be good about it and try to keep a good pace. And I feel I most of the time still can be good about that, like when there's a timer. But then I think sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm in top 8, it's on time. I know I have more time to make my decision, but of course, you still want to go at a good pace. And it's still something that I try to improve on because it's good to try to be aware of anything as a Magic player, whether it's even skill-based or mental-based or anything in between like that, to like playing faster. So I'm like, I feel bad I'm keeping everyone hostage here, my long match, and I have a lot I can get into on that, but I get one step at a time there. But I think there's also other factors people don't think about sometimes. Nerves, obviously, can affect how you play, along with, I don't know, see, my brain's gone already. I don't know, see, like that.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That,
there's a lot to think about always, and a lot to go through, different lines, and every decision matters in this format. Games are won by inches, not miles, and that one mistake or that one correct play could pivot the entire match. So yeah, it makes sense to take time, but we also do have the round clock for a reason. And if the longer matches go in the untimed rounds of top 8, that is what it is, and that makes them even more epic.
And it is also always extra tricky because you obviously have played more matches heading into top 8 in a tournament. So as any tournament goes on, anybody's brain's going to get more and more exhausted from the more matches you play. But it's funny, you mentioned how it's true where sometimes you have to be careful not to think too little and then make a small mistake, because some matches once again can come down to a single mistake in pre-modern, which I really enjoy. That's my kind of magic, where I feel my decisions actually mattered. And I feel like pre-modern is definitely the format now, just based on the cards we have available, that I find the most often I play more games where I felt my decisions mattered. And that's some really awesome in Magic. And it's something I even wrote about in my primer that I released recently.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to kind of kick this off a little bit and just mention that I've seen a few paragraphs from it, a few sections. I think one you had shared publicly, I believe, was the Enchantress matchup. But it's a lot of detail. It took you a very long time to write that. It's not because you're like George R.R. Martin, who took forever and still hasn't written the Winds of Winter, but it's because you put so much detail into it. And I think if anyone's looking to learn Naya Terrageddon, this would be a pretty easy thing that you'd look to acquire.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like, I remember I've mentioned to so many people that I didn't ever intend for it to first be as big as it is and lengthwise, like, in it. Like, we were almost at 200 pages in that. I think it's at 195. And then I also didn't think it would take so long, therefore, because of that. Like, I remember telling people that I feel like I can probably get this done in 3 weeks. And then it ended up being like 7 months. So it was a close guess. The thing with me is just, I want to make sure that I am providing the most I can, because I like to help people in general, not just in Magic. I just always like discussing things and trying to help people, to give advice. I always like to try to help out if I can. It fills me with the sense of satisfaction. And I know I can make updates, and I will as time goes on with it. But I'm like, I want to make sure the initial like primer that's out at least shows people like, hey, I want people to have a lot of quality and not just quantity. Like, I know some people, when they write stuff, they might be like, okay, we'll just get to 100 pages to say, oh, I have a 100-page thing. And I don't want people to think like, I'm like, oh, I got the 200 pages where I put a bunch of fluff. And I'm like, no, it's just pre-modern is so different to some formats where there's so much more to dive into. Like, for instance, if you're writing a matchup breakdown of even some in standard, you might be like, oh, I have 10 matches to write about. But in pre-modern, it's so diverse. I'm like, I've 24, I think, like, different breakdown. And then
I can just attest to that for a second, because I started writing my tournament report and I got to half a page on just talking about why Wooded Foothills. I picked that 4 of them. We're talking about a small part of the mana base, and that was already half a page. So I can only imagine with all the different lands that you have in yours, that section alone must be massive.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because things that I thought would be really quick, oh, I'm going to write 3 sentences about this card, it turns into a page. I remember my funniest example is just, I have a section where I talk about cards I'm even not playing, but I've seen played before, because I'm like, I want to cover every possibility. And the Enlightened Tutor section, where I really don't like Enlightened Tutor, to say the least, it ended up being like 3 or 4 pages on a card that I'm not even playing, of just why I don't like it. in the archetype, and don't get me wrong, Enlightened Tutor can have its spots in pre-modern, but I wrote about how I still think it's the biggest trap card potentially in the entire format of it looks so good on paper to fit into any white deck for so many reasons.
My biggest problem with it is just, I guess, in the context of Terrageddon, we're already putting ourselves at card disadvantage with Mox. We really can't afford to do that with Enlightened Tutor 2. And especially if then you go to grab Sylvan Library and you take 8 to end up with the same amount of cards that you should already have. It just seems like, what are we doing here with that? So I agree with you. I think there's better ways to be putting cards in your deck than Enlightened Tutor.
It is quite brutal on that.
And Sam, I was just going to say, I've read the first 20 or so pages, and it is so detailed and well thought out that I've actually a couple times purchased primers from, I want to say primers in air quotes. I'm not going to say who, but it seems like there's these format tourists that they stream other formats and whatnot, and they come in, I don't know, they do all right at a challenge, and then suddenly they're the authority on a deck, and they release a primer or a sideboard guide that maybe it's like AI generated or something, or they just totally nailed it in. I feel like I got scammed on one of these. It was $10, and I'm just like, this is nothing. It's 3 pages, and I didn't learn a thing.
$10 I ever made. No,
Yeah, I mean,
it was not me.
Yeah, so your primer is, what was it? Is $15 or 17 tickets on Moto, right?
Yeah, I wanted to include the ticks option too, because I'm like, I know some people have an abundance of those, or it might be even easier than like cash for people. So I'm like, that's something cool.
To me, it's basically free at that point if you could just get it with tickets. I think it's just incredible value. Like 200 pages of quality writing. It comes out to 7 cents a page or something like that. I wonder if people are on the fence, if they're if in any way interested in Terrageddon, if like either like samples that they can get or some preview option, or it's just kind of $15, 17 ticks, take it or leave it.
Yeah, I think I should in some way post some parts, because in my head I'm like, I just assumed that people would be following any update like I put when I was talking about like leading up to releasing it, but it's like, hey, people are busy, they might not see something I mentioned before too and everything. So my logic, for instance, was Neal talked about how I put the entire Enchantress matchup breakdown, for instance, in the Terravor Discord, and I'm like, oh, this should be like plenty proof to people. But anybody that didn't see that, because like I posted that in like February or something, I think it makes sense, because you talked about too, where sometimes I can relate to being on the fence sometimes of getting a guide from anybody where it's like, I wish I could see part of it, because the quality ranges so much, because it's not like there's, I don't know, like Yelp reviews or something too, where you can find out like, oh, just because this person's an amazing player and I know they know the deck a lot, it might not translate the same in text form.
This might be a little before your time, Sam, but back in the day, going to a video game rental store, and this is I'm so old. This is pre-internet, right? So you go to a store, you get a game for a weekend, right? Like parents bring it to whatever local video game rental store there was. And all you can do is take a look at the cover art and the back and the blurb. And they hype it up like it's the greatest game of all time. Go home, ends up being trash. So, yeah, I totally get what you're saying as far as the quality ranging so much with some of these primers out there. But at least as far as what I've read so far, and not only have I bought it, I think Andreas is going to get it, and he already knows a ton about Terrageddon and has great success with it. But just getting all the information from your perspective on why cards should be included, why not, the matchup breakdown, the guide for 2 different versions, the sideboard guide, just seems really good value to me.
Can we take a quick aside based on Chris's reference there? For the opposite to all three of you guys. What's the most disappointed you've ever been in a video game?
Oh,
I'll tell you right now.
Ooh.
If can I lead this? 100% got it. So, Elder Scrolls Oblivion. I love that game. I played it 150 hours or something, right? So there's a game that came out. It was being released. It was called Two Worlds, and they.
I
So
thought you were going to say
actually-
Skyrim for a second. I thought we were
No,
going to
no.
have a problem.
No,
I managed a GameStop when Two Worlds
dude,
came out.
I might have actually returned the game or attempted to. So basically, Two Worlds came out the same day as BioShock, which is like an insanely good game. I bought Two Worlds because it said on the back, Oblivion on steroids. Now, I'm thinking Oblivion on steroids, this is going to be, holy shit, are you kidding me? I played that game for 150 hours. Oblivion on steroids, this is like after steroids, after like years of steroid use, and you get all the negative effects of it. That's what the game was.
It's Barry
So
Bonds' giant head.
So I went back to the GameStop and I'm like, can I return this? I said no. So immediately listed on like Amazon, just undercut everybody, took an L and just cut my losses. I've never been so disappointed in a game.
That's one of the better examples. So I managed GameStops for like 15 years, and that's one of the better examples I can come up with would be
Then what would
Yeah.
yours be then?
so
wait, I thought you said Sam. You said
Go ahead.
hand, or
I
did
said
you say
Shane. Shane, Sam.
Oh,
It's
it
close
sounded like
enough.
Sam to me. Never
Well,
mind.
Sam,
I'm-
why don't you jump in?
No, I want Shane.
Go for it. Go for it. Shane will go next.
you're up.
Oh,
I'll go
no.
last. I'll have what? Again, 15 years at a GameStop, so I'll have one even if you name mine.
Good call.
Versus if I name yours, you'll be
There,
stuck.
there's some really good answers I can give because every time the new WWE 2K game comes out, every single year, because they add some great features, they take away others for no reason, it seems. But the main reason I say that is because 2K, I feel bad for whoever plays their other games because apparently it's the same. They cannot make online servers for the life of them. Every year you play the game, you're going to disconnect online at least 50%. At least 50% of the time. And that's being generous. There have been some game where you actually can't stay in and they never fix it the entire time online. I have never seen servers so bad, and I get them to play with my friends where we always get them every year, and we're like, man, they did so many great things with the game, but the online servers, it's never the same. You always disconnect, and then they come with really fun glitches that can really mess with your sanity, where it's one thing we would call, this was for, I'd say, 5 games in a row. We'd just call it screen glitching, where instead of disconnecting, which would be preferred over this, what happens is at any random point in the match, your screen they'll act like the other person isn't playing anymore, but you don't know since you're fighting them. So you're basically just fighting as if they put their controller down, but you don't realize it for a couple minutes or something. And they're like, did you screen glitch? I'm like, yeah, I beat you on my screen and it's just waiting now for you to finish. I'm like, oh, thanks. That's always the big thing for me. I don't know how they get away with it.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I still keep coming back.
The Breaking Bad, he can't keep getting away with it, but they do. I'll give 2 quick ones because both of my answers are games I actually did not play, but I purchased and returned. The first one, there was a game that I played with my friends from college. We had a lot of fun called Don't Starve Together. And they made another game called Oxygen Not Included. And I was very excited for that. And from everything I've heard, it was a great game. But I thought it was also going to be a multiplayer experience when I bought it. And then when my friends were playing it and I bought it and I logged on, I was like, oh, how do I join your game? And they said, well, you don't. It's single player. Why did I buy this then? I don't want to play this game by myself. I want to play with you guys. So I returned it. I think I left a review that said multiplayer not included instead of Oxygen not included. And I don't want to besmirch it too much because everything I've heard about it was a great game, but I was a little disappointed in that regard. The other one was my favorite game of all time is Fallout New Vegas. And so those type of games I always love playing. So when Starfield came out, I was very excited to play that game. I see that I actually might have got saved in this case. So I bought it. It took forever to download. Went to boot it. Your graphics card is not good enough. That was a long waste of time, and that was disappointing. So I returned that, and then everything I heard about that game was not very good. So maybe dodged a bullet on that one.
Every game you mentioned just made me think of more games that fell into this category. So recent memory would be Cyber. Just hard crashing every 15 to 20 minutes, regardless of what I did for settings, just hard crashing all the time. The Order 1886. Phenomenal game, 4-hour campaign. Full price game. That was miserable. There was probably another couple good ones. Magna Carta was like this JRPG with amazing art, amazing soundtrack, literally the worst combat system I've ever played. Like, it was almost like flipping coins, but not in a good way. So you would just think you're winning and then lose 3 flips in a row and die.
Like, the two-faced coin where it's double-sided, but you don't get to pick the side that's double-sided.
Yeah. And then, when you said No Man's Sky, that would be the other one from recent memory, where it was just complete disappointment. Promise features were not included. The game's apparently much better now because they've added the things that were indicated to have been in the main game, but were not. But those would be the ones that come off the top of my head. There's probably another dozen I can't think of right now.
Awesome. I'm curious what other people have for this as well too. So if you're listening and you wanted to sound off in the comments and tell us a game that you might have been disappointed in, I'd love to see some and see if it jogs my memory on a couple others like just happened just now. So awesome.
I just had one other thing though. Basically, the other thing I wanted to say was, we were talking about how sometimes the quality can vary and you don't know until you get it because of like the review system and everything. I remember there was somebody on Twitter, I haven't seen him in a bit though, he tried to start a thing where he would buy any guide anybody asked him to. Like, all you needed was one person request it, and he would buy a guide, read through the whole thing, and leave an actual rating, like, with notes and everything. And when I saw that stuff, I'm like, first, that's awesome. But then second, I'm like, oh, I see like a pattern of some common thing that a lot of people seem to not include. So when I was writing, I actually took a lot of inspiration based on the notes I saw he gave on so many other primer. Of one example is like, a lot of people don't talk about like some personal experiences or examples. And I'm like, I like bring that stuff up because it feels more exciting to read about too. Like with something, instead of just, these are the facts about this that I feel. This is the facts that I feel about this. I like adding a little bit of a personal twist on it.
That makes sense.
And one funny setback, though, was I started this guide, and then like, part way through it is when Parallax Tide got banned. So I had to get rid of so much stuff in the primer for that, and I was so annoyed because it was also like the one card I wanted gone from Pre-Modern 2, and I was happy, but then I'm like, oh wait, I just realized how much stuff I gotta get rid of, where I'm like, I got to get rid of the U-Tide matchup, and then a funny thing is, I'm like, I'm just gonna get rid of the replenish section, like, this deck's dead now, and then I'm like, oh
it was not dead.
And then I'm like, oh
Spoiler
no,
alert.
I gotta do it again now. Every type little replenished, I'm like, oh no, I was so wrong. I was so confident it was dead. And we saw, like, it's still one of the best decks, which is crazy to see.
Reports of Replenish's demise may have been overstated because we've mentioned it a few times on here. The deck just got better. It got better.
It's actually crazy. And then one other thing I just wanted to say was the one of the benefits of it just happening to take so long was that different things happened over time where I'm like, I won like a pre-modern challenge in April, for instance, and then I got to put in the guide like, hey, my list I won the challenge with is doing a few things different than the list I started writing in the primer. So then I just added separate sideboard sheets even for that too. And I'm like, that's something nice to include there because people will be like, oh, what about your new list? What do you think? So I'm like, cool, I get to put that in there like at the same time. And I think one thing that makes me feel good about the primer's quality is my best friend, he read through the whole thing. He'd never played pre-modern before. Like, I've been trying to get him into it, and we've done, like, very little test matches. Like, usually he likes blue decks, so, like, we maybe tried, like, Landstill versus something, like, a while ago. But other than that, he's never played. And he read through the whole guide, and he's like, this is, like, inspiring. I'm gonna take this through a league. And then he immediately 5-0s, like, on his first pre-modern league with the list. And he's like, dude, I would
Awesome.
not have done that without it. And I'm like, that's a very good test of it. And I'm like, it feels good to see.
I think that's a pretty good indicator of someone of the power of knowledge. And maybe if you're thinking about playing Terrageddon, go get the primer. Because if someone who has no idea about pre-modern can just hop in and 5-0 in their first league, that's pretty impressive. So I think that speaks volumes to what you put together, and you did a great job.
I appreciate it.
As an outsider, I hate mid-range decks, so Terrageddon's the only pre-modern deck I'll never play. I still think it might be a good buy for me because I get a 200-page matchup guide, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And a download from Sam White, so I know what he's thinking every matchup I ever play him against.
It's a good call.
So I think for data points, it's just a good purchase.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
Even if you're not into Terrageddon.
So-
I'm not
so,
going to argue it.
No, I have to chime in here because that's exactly how I dismantled you in the top four. Because I knew how you were sideboarding against Tog, and I had the preview section of the sideboard guide. When I wrote out my sideboard map, I did Terrageddon, but I did it based solely on what you were doing. So I did this complete judo sideboard swap. It was insane. So I appreciate that, and that's another reason why I kind of bought the guide. I give it a little back, but it is quality. So
Hey, you know what? I acknowledge that could be part of the stuff, but I'm okay with that.
Knowledge is power, and there are levels to this game, so there's definitely reasons for it. But as you're mentioning there, Chris had that information, helped him take down the tournament, being the champion for it. So if you want to win as well too, if you're playing Terrageddon, or as Shane pointed out, if you're playing against Terrageddon, take a look at the primer. Chris, I want to talk more about the ELD kind of finish, and then I want to get into kind of our post dinner celebration. But can you just go through the matchups you had in the top 8 and how you took it down?
yes, I'll go over it briefly. I did post turmeric for it in the global pre-modern Discord for content, as well as the New England pre-modern Discord as well, and the Tog server. Yeah, so basically, just real fast through the Swiss. So I played you on Sligh round 1. Played
The
against
top 8
Champ-
because I wanted that to be left out again. I didn't need to hear it.
okay. I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding. Just keep going. I'm joking.
Enchantress round 2. Played against Landstill, really tight match round 3, and I took my first loss against Hodge, who was playing Sligh in round 4. Then I played against Enchantress round 5, and ID'd with Sam to the top 8. So going into the top 8, I'm thinking like, all right, the Psychatog Discord has been really supportive of me, hyped up on my finishes, even the top 9, right? I didn't quite close it out. I lost in the April monthly to Drew, came in second there, bubbled, made state champs, bubbled the June ELD, lost in the top 8 of the March, just close, but not quite able to close it out. And I really want to do it this time. So in the quarterfinals, I played against Will Moore, was playing either Fincula or Esper Solution, however you want to call it. And we had an insane match that it might take me really long time to go over it, but you should maybe check out the tournament report. Just a little spoiler, I ended up getting perfect lethal damage with 0 cards in my deck in game 2.
Oh.
And it was totally crazy. I was down to my last Psychatog. I faded or dealt with all of his swords to plowshares, all of his vindicates. It was just incredible. And I think it was the best game, or at least one of the best games I've ever played in my life. So really happy to have that to start the top 8. And I think that momentum and the fact that I purchased Sam's Primer and I knew how he was going to sideboard against me helped me get past him in the top 4 to my final redemption rematch against CTL Commissioner Hodge on Sligh. The games were intense. They were close, but I was able to take it 2-0. So I had a clean 6-0 sweep through the top 8, and I was thrilled. I was very fortunate when I got into pre-modern. I won my first tournament, which was great. But at the same time, it almost became a curse because I spent 2 years chasing that feeling of that awesome tournament win where everything just seemed to magically come together. But along the way, and even with that tournament, it led to the eventual formation of the crew, and the losses that I took along the way and the deep runs just made it all the sweeter when I finally took it down. So,
And you shared that with us at the post-dinner celebration, and I think it was important to kind of say that on here because Magic sometimes can just be such zero sum. You win it and it's awesome, and you don't win it and you feel down and you question sometimes, why am I doing this? And obviously you get out of it and you're just like, oh, why I'm doing this is because Magic the Gathering is the best game of all time and it's awesome to play and we have a lot of friends along the way. The cheesy thing, it's not about the magic, it's about the gathering. I'll see myself out after that one. But I thought it was important to talk about on here because everyone thinks that way sometimes. And it's very important to not let the negative thoughts drown out all the positivity that comes with this game. I think it's important to always be positive because positivity breeds positivity. And at the end of the day, we're just trying to have fun. We all go through it and the results will follow the process every single time. Chapin wrote about it in Next Level Magic, and it's something that has stuck with me since I read it. The goal is not to be the best. The goal is not to win every game. The goal is to be the perfect Magic player, and that is to find the optimal way to play. And that changed my whole perspective on everything. It's I want to play as best as I can, and what happens.
It's a banger.
It's just for a moment, because you're always positive, always friendly, and you play tight. And I know there was a while where you top aided a number of the ELD monthlies, and it was like, I think you joked about it, where you're like, oh, I have like the curse or the finals curse. I forget exactly. Maybe you can refresh, but your journey to your eventual win.
Yeah, I have a very different Magic playing philosophy. I don't play test at all, like 0 play tests across the board. I don't play on Moto except on very rare. I think I've played 1 league of pre-modern on Mogo. It's more about just being a good Magic player. We have our skills as pre-modern players. I'll also play contemporary formats. We cube all the time. I think my journey is more about just getting better as a Magic player as a whole and letting those skills translate to pre-modern. And as Chris alluded to, I think I top 8 ELDs 6 times before I won my first one. And it was a curse for a while because I would go into the top 8 and lose favorable matchups. And I sat down and I analyzed my games. Any game that I lose that wasn't a complete blowout, I pretty much remember step by step, turn by turn. And I just play through them and see where I could have made different decisions that could have impacted the outcome of the game, and try to remember those for next time to see if was it a one-time thing? Is it a heuristic I need to develop? There's all these complexities that go into it. But my eventual win was actually on Replenish, where I beat LobsterCon 2026 champion Brian in a Replenish mirror, which was not skill-based at all. We were both game 3 just top decking cards and just trying to draw. We both saw 30 cards before we saw a Replenish.
That's crazy.
So it went really deep. I wish there was more skill involved in that mirror, but at least in our game 3, there was not. It was just us both digging, both throwing counter spells at each other, both slinging 4-mana enchantments, and not really winning the game until I finally found a Replenish, which was 32 cards in, which I think Brian was 34 cards deep and didn't find one.
That's crazy. I think afterwards, did you change your Discord handle to something like the Replenish Master or something like that?
Best
yes.
player.
So I think I challenged Brian beforehand. I was like, whoever wins this is the best Replenish player. It's that simple. And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
I remember that. So after Shane won the monthly, he changed his Discord to best Replenish player. And then immediately that weekend, he's like, are there any $100 buy-in pre-modern tournaments around this weekend? He's going off. I mean, that's cool.
No, I wanted. Yeah. It was like a good time to play. I understood the matchup and I understood the meta at that point, so it seemed like a good opportunity to double down.
And
so it's like, is there any better big tournaments? Let's play them now. Well, the meta is relatively stable. I understand what's going on with the matchup. Let's go. And then the Tide ban happened immediately after. I believe I was the last. I won the ELD before the Tide ban. So I'd like to think that I got it banned, but it wasn't me. It was clearly Brian. Brian got it banned. But I'd like to think I did a little bit of help.
I think after it was banned and people were saying, "Oh, Replenish is dead," and everything, what's Brian gonna do? I think you posted in Discord. You said you abdicate your crown or something. The Replenish.
You can have it back.
You can have it, Brian.
Yeah.
And he picked that crown up and did love it.
Then some. And then some.
Yeah, he's still wearing it.
Awesome.
But yeah, I have a very different philosophy. I don't test for matchups. If I play test Nick Mayo on Elves for 100 matchups, I didn't learn the Elves matchup. I learned the Nick Mayo Elves matchup, which may be different from the Sam White Elves matchup, which even if they have a 75 card mirror, there's going to be differences in how they execute. So I don't believe, personally, there's a tremendous amount of use in playtesting specific matchups. It's more about having the overall concepts of how to play Magic correctly and what your cards do, how to optimize your game pieces.
Makes a lot of sense. I'm with you on Team No Moto, by the way. I don't play Magic online at all. I live vicariously through the rest of these guys when they're on their accounts sometimes watching. But yeah, I'm with you on that regard.
It helped you out this past week, though, didn't it?
It did. I got to be honest. Like, we can get into it a little bit more. The list I planned on submitting on Monday and the list I submitted on Thursday were so wildly different, and it was 100% due to Moto testing. And I know I would not have gotten the result that I did with the list from Monday. So that has me rethinking my process on maybe Moto should be something I look at. But I think there's validities to every sort of different strategy, and just being open to changing and reevaluating, I think is important as well too. So as we were talking about with that positive mindset that was in that speech Chris gave at the dinner, one other thing that happened at dinner was Sam was talking to me about a cube thing that I was hosting the Sunday after Sacred Torch. And he said, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it because I'm not qualified for the RC yet. And there's an RCQ on that day. And I said to him, I was like, are there any other RCQs you can qualify with? He's like, well, there's the Super Qualifier online tomorrow. And I just said to him, okay, just win that one then. don't even think about Sunday. Just win that tournament. Sam, what happened?
I qualified in the tournament where I thought it'd be the least likely that I was able to get my RC qualification in the Super on MTGO, which is the first time I've definitely ever gotten an invite from one of those, because usually in person, it's like you got the events where some people in the middle of nowhere can be like 10 players or something. It can be a lot easier. But on Moto, usually, especially for Modern specifically, it's usually like roughly 400 players on average. So I'm like, it's just so much harder, like statistically. So I went to the mindset of, sure, like I'll try to get the invite here, but I'm not expecting too much, even though, once again, you should have the positive mindset. And I think it played a part in it because I remember the last time I played a Super online, it was a while ago. And I remember this time I'm like, don't think of the bigger picture, just take it match to match. And it was the most, I feel, calm and collected I've felt playing in at least a Super I can ever remember. I felt like my mental state made a very big difference, and I feel that transcended into me top fouring that event where they do the top 4 get the invite. And yeah, it was 343 people, and I was on top of the world with that. And we won the quarters in top 8, and then we got what we came to do, and it was the prophecy to play Neal's Cube. And it was crazy because I'm like, once again, statistically, I'm like, this probably isn't going to work out. But then you got to do everything there, and it was great because for me, my goal is always play on the Pro Tour. I love competitive Magic, and it's just very important to get these qualifications because, like I said, it's a big part of Magic for me. I love competitive play. That's why I take our pre-mart events seriously too and everything here. It's just the competitive player in me. My mental state was like the best it could be in a large event that I've played, and I felt that if I had even my mindset a year ago, potentially, I might not have gotten the results I got because I felt I could stay calm, collected, and focused even in times of tilt or roughness or pressure and everything. And I just think that's awesome. That can happen.
It was a great win, and just shows that if you want something so bad, you can get it. And you wanted a cube, so you found a way to make it happen.
That's right. That's the power of cube. If you want to do well in any event, you gotta plan cube with your friends and put it on the same date or something. And then
it happened to me too. I had to fly home the next morning and get there in time before people got to my house. So, absolutely.
But it was great. So I feel good right now. I feel all-time high in my play this year, and hopefully that can transcend now into continuing to sweep the year like we talked about. It's going good for us. We'll see how this weekend
work to be done. We're never going to let it get ahead of us. There's more work to be done, more tournaments to play, and treat it like a 0-0 on the scoreboard right now.
I might need to pack some Sligh hate because I gotta anticipate playing Neal, and once again, Neal and Chris and I are like near the top of the Player of the Year standings. I'm like, I can't let you beat me. Take my point.
I like your sideboard so much better when there's no Zoran Orbs in there, and I would appreciate it if you kept it the same way.
Oh, I can't get away with it forever, though. I know.
Another thing that we talked about on the last episode, and we've all talked about through the Discord and talked about different people at ELD, was this budding New York versus Massachusetts rivalry that was kind of always, I shouldn't say budding, because it's always been there. But for them to come down to our house in New England and win the tournament, a lot of people are saying we have to win Sacred Torch. New England needs to take the crown in Sacred Torch. And having a lot of people come down was unexpected, at least for my part. But hearing the background, and I think, Shane, you can probably talk to this a little bit since no one on this call knows the New England pre-modern scene better than you. I would say why don't you let us know how that rivalry started and kind of New England pre-modern as a whole?
So I would posit that I have a unique perspective on this overall because I'm actually from upstate New York originally.
So we've just been giving the secrets
So-
to you. Okay.
So in my youth, I've been in Massachusetts for over 15
Okay.
years at this point. But in my youth, in the early 2000s, when I would go to PTQs and state championships, I'd actually go down to New York City and play against Mike Flores and other players that we now play against pre-modern against. So I've played against these individuals for many years. As far as the rivalries go, it's existed as long as I've been in pre-modern, which has been about 3.5 years now, 4 years. It's always been there. And it's very back and forth. They win events, we win events, they win events, we win events. They won their last Sacred Torch event and they beat, I believe it was Brad from the Duress Crew, a Massachusetts player, in the finals. And there's so much in the middle that I'm missing. LobsterCon 2026, the finals was a mirror of the best replenished player in pre-modern, with the shop's very own Brian, versus the very talented New York player, also named Brian.
Mirror match.
In a mirror match of replenish. And our Brian, it feels weird to call a shops player ours, but we're New England, we're all
Absolutely.
together.
In this regard,
So
for sure.
our Brian won the event. And then we go to our Duress Crew Regional, which we just had 3 weeks ago. I forget how long at this point.
Two weeks ago, I think, or maybe no, it's three weeks ago. This escalated quickly. How many tournaments just happened in a short period of time?
It just back to back. Absolutely. I had to skip the LDs in the middle. That's how many there were. But we had another situation that was similar. We had a New York player take it down, Andy Vollmer, with a standstill. And it's been a very back and forth rivalry. They're fantastic rivals to have. There's some tremendous Magic players. And I'm very happy that we got to send a contingent of our players down to New York in order to compete at their event. Neal, you were present.
Yeah, I was there. No, just not to play
okay.
too coy,
So-
but obviously I said at the beginning of the episode, I did win the Sacred Torch Showdown for 2026. Definitely. I've played on Pro Tours. I've played in Grand Prix. I played in everything at the local level. I remember Game Day, Magic 2010. Nothing compares to this. This was definitely the highlight of my Magic playing career. And it was awesome. For sure.
Excellent. So I wanted to ask you about your deck choice for the event, because I believe you were on Sligh. Is that
Yes.
correct?
So I knew going into this tournament that I wanted to play Sligh. That much was determined no matter what. Is the deck I am the most confident in piloting, and it was a room full of very strong players. I've recently been playing Dreadnought and Replenish, but to say I was even average at those decks would be disingenuous. I would consider myself below average at both of them. To go into a room where you have players the caliber of Dave Kaplan on Dreadnought and try to navigate through a brain freeze mirror, I did not feel that would be the right decision. To bring Replenish and play against Brian in a Replenish mirror and go through Opal triggers or try to get Decree of Silence into play first, I did not feel confident in that as well too. So despite playing those decks recently, I went back to Sligh and I came up with a list and I submitted it in Melee. I sent it into the Discord and I was like, that's that. It's Monday. I don't want to have to think about this for the rest of the week. This is the deck I'm going to play. And I have to give credit to Chris Roy. Chris, you immediately were like, I have some thoughts on this deck and I want to run it through a league. You did. That league result was 2-3. And okay, maybe we should look at this a little bit better if that's the deck I'm planning to play. At that point, the decision was made on, I wanted to, and I said this in the post interview too, and I'll say it the exact same way, I wanted to sell out to beat Dreadnought. The 4 decks that I wanted to metagame the most, and with Dreadnought being at the top, were obviously that Dreadnought, Sligh, Goblins, and Oath Ponza. And I faced all of those in the Swiss, even though Oath Ponza was not as high part of the meta as I thought it would be. And a deck that was a complete miss that I should have thought of. Land still, clearly just won a tournament. I should have taken that into account as well too, was I think the number 4 deck. But luckily Sligh is just very good into land still. So I felt good about that as well too. And we played some games, got a little lucky against a Dreadnought opponent, but realized didn't really have too much for it. So, okay, we're going to put 12 cards in our sideboard. So Mogg Salvage, you're in. Overload, any red sideboard that doesn't start with 4 Overload is wrong. That is the best card in your sideboard. So 4 Overload. And then 4 Red Blasts. And originally we had a split of 2 and 2 between Red and Pyroblast. Ended up coming to the decision that for Red Blast, getting around misdirection, targeting stasis, or in some case maybe a Tog that's in play, that was the reason to go with 4 Red Blast over Pyroblast, even though sometimes getting Pyroblast into the yard for Lavamancer or Curse Scroll to get an extra card out of your hand, or even turning a Barbarian Ring online, that just didn't feel like a winning play. We went with Red Blast instead. Okay, we've got 12 cards in our sideboard already. There are only 3 more that we can have. So we have to construct our main deck in a way that can deal with the rest of the meta. And the card that I knew I wanted to play and was in the first iteration of the deck was Wasteland. It does not do anything against Dreadnought. They don't have Mishra's Factory anymore. But it does everything against every other deck. Even against Sligh, there are targets. Sometimes they keep hands where they only have a Barbarian Ring because a lot of them have 4. And if you hit that, there's nothing they can do. If you're against Replenish, the best way to attack them, I learned this from playing Terravor, was attack their mana base. So I wanted to incorporate that in Sligh as well too, and actually have a clock to be able to beat that. We start with 4 Wasteland, and because of that, okay, let's not play Ball Lightning. I didn't want to play Ball Lightning. Ball Lightning can always be a liability at 3 red pips. We're playing 4 colorless lands now, and sometimes we only operate off of 2 lands. And sometimes your opponents play around it. They almost always play around it. So why not make them play around it and you don't have it? So that was the decision there. We go back to the sideboard. I had, I think, Lava Darts at some point in there. Decided with Earthquake when we were going through it because it's just a very versatile card. It's good against goblins. Wanted to have something there. It can even be used against Enchantress, but I think there was only 1 or 2 Enchantress players. Thank God, because I didn't want to play against it. And the sideboard's fleshed out at this point. We have a bunch of 1-drops. I wanted 5 2-1s. And for the longest time, we had Goblin Cadets in there. I played that at LobsterCon. It was awesome. It's been bad every tournament since. I don't think the metagame is good for it right now. And switched to Goblin Patrol simply because it was boarding out cadets in a lot of the sideboard mapping and didn't have enough cards to bring in because I had 12 cards for Dreadnought and nothing else. So, well, Patrol can stay in a lot more matchups, so we made that switch, and that ended up being great because that card was awesome for me all day.
Tangent.
Yeah.
A Duress Crew member, Brad, asked me if he wanted to play. He was like, I think I want to play Sligh, or I might play a black-green deck. What would you bring to New York? And I said, I wouldn't bring Sligh because I don't want to play Sligh into Dreadnought all day. That seems like a miserable proposition.
Yep.
Personally, I think historically Sligh is in the 20 to 30% range against Dreadnought.
Really bad.
Yeah, it's like 20 to 30%, I think, historically, according to the Duress Crew data project. But I was like, I would not bring this. I would just bring the black-green deck because New York is known for playing blue. They're known for playing Dreadnought and Landstill and Stasis. And I would love to bring the Cabal Therapy Duress deck. When I gave him that advice, I hadn't considered you could just play the Sligh deck that beats the blue decks, give up your points other places in order to beat blue. and it seems like it was a fantastic meta.
Yeah, it felt really, really strong. I played against Drew in the top 8 of one of the ELD monthlies, and I was on Sligh and he was on Dreadnought. And I jokingly said, because it was the 4 versus 5 seed, I was like, I get to be on the play. And then I said, I also get to be on the play in game 2. So and he smashed me in 2 games because it's just under standard builds, unwinnable. And I felt it was the exact opposite. It was unlosable in games 2 and 3 here. And I played Dreadnought twice, once against David, who I think was the highest placing Dreadnought player in the tournament, and once against Mike Flores. And both times I lost game 1, and both times I won game 2 and 3, and neither of those game 2 and 3 felt particularly close, at least from my side of the table. Felt like I was in complete control. There was one point where David cast Peak on me, and I had 3 Mogg Salvage, a Red Blast, and an Overload, and I already had a creature in play. So it just felt like if you have 12 outs, you're just going to draw them. And that hand's an anomaly. Obviously, I drew so many. I think I kept a hand with 2 of them, and I just kept drawing them. Which it doesn't work if you don't have the threat in play, because I actually mulliganed a hand that had Red Blast, Overload, and Mogg Salvage, but didn't have a creature. It had 2 burn spells, and I actually mulliganed that hand because that strategy only works if you're playing like your Delver or Secrets deck and have a creature to then push through and not give them outs to draw more Dreadnoughts and more answers to it. So yeah, the Dreadnought matchup felt really strong after board, and I was really happy with that decision and really happy with the metagame call. And again, I just got to keep praising Chris for pushing my thesis and getting us towards a better deck decision.
Yeah, it sounds like it definitely worked out for you. Were there any takeaways from the Swiss? Was there anything about the deck that felt off or that you wanted to change? Not going through round by round, but the deck as a whole during the Swiss.
During the Swiss, it felt really, really good. I think in the, because it was 7 rounds and I did the last round, the 6 I played, I'm pretty sure I lost 4 of the game 1s. And that was by design, just with this, obviously you want to win game 1, but with the board plan we had, feeling very strong about the sideboard games. It's funny, I looked at Melee today and it has your record and then has your game record, and it was like 7 losses. I was like, I don't think I've ever won a tournament when I've lost 7 times. But it was, from the Swiss, takeaways was more like validation of the deck choice. I really can't think of anything that I would have done differently in the main deck, because the number of Volcanic Hammers, I didn't even talk about that. The reason we chose to go with Volcanic Hammer, I had looked at Stu's top 8 deck list from LobsterCon, top 4 actually. And he had Volcanic Hammers in there, and he had Wastelands as well too. And that's where I really got my first inspiration for putting Wasteland in the deck and figuring, okay, if we're being greedy on the sideboard, these hammers actually do a lot more in this configuration too. So I played 3 instead of the 2 that he had. I didn't play Orcish Librarian. Maybe I should have done that. Maybe that would be the one change I should make. But because that card is sweet. But the hammers, they clear elephants. They're more reach off the top. Yes, they're sorcery speed, but they're still 3 damage. And I would play that over Shock any day of the week.
It sounds like the Swiss went pretty well. Did you want to talk about any particular matchups, or did we want to push to the top?
Yeah, just real quick on it. I'll talk about each match very quickly. I'll go with the first round was against Oath Ponza. I played a Jackal-Pup on turn 1. My opponent played Mox turn 1 Oath, and I then had to seal fire my Jackal-Pup, which you have to be prepared to do in those games. And generally those games are games that you can win, because if they're all in on Oath, then you don't have to play your creatures. You just play draw go. It's the similar against playing Standstill. When they play Standstill, that's kind of the game you want to play. Draw go until I draw enough burn spells to kill you. So Oath and Standstill kind of play very similarly, in my opinion. But unfortunately, he cast 2 copies of Terror for that game. I tried to flip Oath into... no, I did not try to flip Oath. I flipped Oath in a different game when he had an Elephant. But when he had Terravores, I did not, because I didn't want to put lands in the graveyard. But one's games 2 and 3, off the back of the Overloads. Overload is awesome. Vandal is awesome when they don't have an Oath. My opponent had Oath all 3 games, so I never got to connect with Vandal. But the Overloads clear the Mishra's Factory, which lets me use Wasteland to clear other lands and lock them out under their own sphere. My opponent had, I think it was game 2 or game 3, I think it was game 2, had a Sphere of Resistance, and I actually do not care about that card at all. If I'm denying your mana, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt me because I don't have Ball Lightning in my deck and all my spells cost 1. Well, they cost 2, I guess, technically. But so then the next round I played against Goblins. I won game 1. I can't remember too much other than I answered a lackey, and then obviously there's no turn 2 play that's mana efficient for them if that happens. Game 2, my opponent mulliganed to 4. There's nothing really there. They mulliganed to 4, and they had to pitch Siege Gang Commander to Pyrokinesis to kill 2 of my guys. It might have even been 3 of my guys, but they had no cards at that point, so I wasn't worried about anything from that standpoint. They were a little unlucky. They actually top 8 as well, too. I was their only loss in the Swiss, so despite having that bad luck on that mulligan, I was able to have a good tournament. I believe his name was Andy. I'll double check that afterwards. But then the next round was against Sligh. My opponent was very friendly. I believe his name was Joey. I won the die roll and I chose the play. And I got smoked in game 1. Like, absolutely crushed. He was playing Shock. He had more burn spells and I had more creatures. And that's kind of what it came down to. And I see Chris getting excited for this next part because in that moment I decided, we've had this debate for a little bit, and I actually want to get your take on it, Shane, before I talk too much more about the tournament. But in the Sligh mirror, do you want to be on the play or do you want to be on the draw?
I actually had this discussion with, forgive me for not knowing his last name, but his name is Jimmy. He plays at ELDs.
Jimmy Ray.
Generally,
yeah, he's in the Burn Discord as well, too.
Generally, the 3 people on Sligh are you, me, and Jimmy. And we had this discussion, and I chose to take the play I chose to take the draw in our matchups. He won the die roll, I believe, game 1, and took the play. I don't remember. I only had to choose once, is what I recall. And what I chose to take the draw. And I think that's what you do in the mirror because your cards matter. And then tempo does not because Jackal Pups are unplayable. Mogg Fanatics trade with Mogg Fanatics. Grim Lavamancer dies to everything. So being on the play, you can't really pressure a deck that can answer every spell you play. So being on the draw is where I've been in the matchup.
And I know, Chris, that's been your take, if you want to say it as well, too. As I was on team play up until this point.
Yeah, so this is something I learned way back in the day. I think it was from reading tournament reports of Dave Price or maybe even Mike Flores, that you want to be on the draw in the mirror, and I've been doing it ever since. But I just remember there was a PTQ that I went with one of our teammates, JP. We were both playing Sligh. We get paired against each other in round 1. We know you're supposed to take the draw, so I win the die roll, and this is the only time I've ever done this. I'll take the draw. We both just start laughing, and I ended up winning the match 2-1 because I was on the draw game 1, he was on the draw game 2, I was on the draw game 3.
Yeah, no, and I realized after I lost there, I was like, his extra cards matter, and the draw is where you want to be. However, I had a feeling that my opponent for game 3, if there was a game 3, would pick to do whatever I did. So I made a risky decision to pick the play again, even though I thought it was correct to be on the draw, because if it went to a third game, I wanted to be on the draw in that game. And I know that might sound crazy, and I want to get your guys' takes on that, because I know, Sam, you had said, if you think it's correct, just pick the draw. But I wanted to get lucky in the second game rather than the third game, because if I lose, it doesn't matter when, maybe I can go get some food. That was
my point of view on it is, if you want to be on the draw and you do this strategy of taking the play and then winning that game and getting to be on the draw for game 3, then in the 2 games you had remaining when you made this decision, one of them you got to be on the draw guaranteed pretty much. But if you choose the option of taking the draw game 2, you still get that one game on the draw guaranteed because you need to win both games to win the match. But there is still a non-zero chance that your opponent chooses to not mimic you and still chooses the play and gives you it a second time. Which I then mentioned I myself has found myself in that situation. I can't remember what the matchup was, but I remember my opponent intentionally chose the draw, I think, maybe even game 1, because I think we knew what each other was on. And I still chose to take the play because I think I lost that game. But because I'm like, I feel like you should still always play with what your beliefs are of what you think is best for the best percentage point. And I just can't see myself, for instance, being like, I'm going to change everything I've ever thought about this match just because my opponent chose something different in this line. And I see the logic once again, but I'm like, game 2 and game 3 should be equally important to win, I feel. Like you said, you really wanted to be on the draw game 3, but in my eyes, I'm like, they're both sideboard games. So I feel if they're both equally important to win, why not choose the route that has the highest ceiling, but also, in my opinion, the exact same floor, because you still get the one game on the draw either way.
Sam's logic seems correct to me. I would also posit that it depends on your opponent not knowing what to do in the matchup. And what I mean by that is not by having to play the matchup, but not already having come to a conclusion on whether play or draw is correct. I would rather gamble on having a better position than my opponent not having this predetermined notion of which is correct play or draw. I think the position is more important than the chance that your opponent has not played this matchup enough times to understand what is important.
So what do you got? Sounds like on this fact or fiction pile, it's going to be a 1-4. So,
Chris, anything? Or
As far as the player draw?
what would you do in game 2?
Oh, game 2? I'll take the draw. 100%.
Okay. I didn't do that. And I think it was probably incorrect to not just take the draw. But I wanted to gamble there, which probably was wrong. But it worked out. I won game 2. And my opponent chose to be on the play game 3. And game 3 was a crazy game because his first 2 plays were Skull Scorch. And I, on the first one, no hesitation, randomly pitched 2 cards. I'm not taking 4 damage. And then he played the second one, and I only had 3 cards in hand. And they were Fire Blast, Land, Lightning Bolt. And I thought for a second, I'm like, do I just get rid of all my resources here? And I decided against it and just took the gamble. And I said, best case scenario, I get left with just Lightning Bolt. That's exactly what happened. And he was stuck on 2 lands for a little bit. He eventually got a 3rd land and played Ball Lightning. At that point, I'm at 16 life. And that was, I think, at least from my frame of reference, the first of 2 mistakes I made on the day. No, I made 3 mistakes. I made the first of 3 mistakes I made where I took the 6 damage. Because with the burn that I had, I was trying to set up a win the following turn, and I figured I could take the hit. And that is just straight up incorrect. I should have burned the Ball Lightning and bought myself 2 to 3 more draw steps. But luckily it worked out. My opponent played Sulfuric Vortex, which I get into that in my tournament report. That is a card that I think loses you more games than it wins you. And he took 2 damage off of it, and I was able to kill him. I took 2. I went down to 8, and was not really worried at all from that point. But it was a really, really crazy game. I think that was one of the crazier games I played up. I think there was a Dreadnought game, and obviously the last game of the finals were crazy games. But he had shocks. He leveraged his cards very well in game 1, and I learned something in there. Credit to Joey on that. The next round was against Mike.
What I wanted because I thought this would be a good time to mention this. I'm like, it's funny because on the topic of the play draw, something that has fascinated me like recently in Magic that I even mentioned in my primer, that I think with any deck you're playing in general, there are exceptions. I think it's great to think about when some matches matter more about card quantity, like you said, over card quality. And there's so many interesting aspects when you think of matches like this too, where you're like, oh, I actually think card quantity matters a lot in this matchup too, where that can factor into the player draw, like you said. But also the second factor I think is interesting of sometimes keeping looser hands or more mediocre hands and not mulling as aggressively because you once again get more resources in the cards. And I just think that's just always interesting in Magic and something that a lot of people might not even think about.
No, that's a good point.
I also wanted to point out that your opponent's card choice in Skullscorch rewards them for being on the play. So they were likely to choose the play regardless of what you chose.
And I did not have that information. I didn't see it until game 3, and I had to do a double take. I was like, is that the Hymn to Torok card? And I looked at it, read it, I was like, yep, that is that. I guess I'm discarding 2 cards here. But yeah, with that information, I definitely would have picked draw. So maybe we'll say I made 4 mistakes, but I didn't get punished for any of them. Because there's no justice in Magic sometimes. The next round was against Mike Flores on Dreadnought. I knew he was playing Dreadnought, so I actually went into it saying, okay, I'm willing to mulligan to as low as 4 cards to try and get to Goblin Vandal. So I mulliganed 2 pretty decent hands on 7 and 6 because it could do nothing about Dreadnought. Obviously, nothing can really do anything about Dreadnought. I ended up keeping my 5, which did not have a Vandal, but it had a Jackal Pup and some burn spells. So maybe he doesn't know what I'm on, maybe not. I'm probably not winning game 1 on 4 cards anyways. I'm probably not winning game 1 on if I had 12 cards in that matchup. So I decided to keep the 5. He didn't go for Dreadnought on turn 2, but he went for it on turn 3, and I lost that game pretty quickly. I can't remember what game it was, game 2 or game 3. Both games I just had everything. But there was one game where I had a Vandal in play and he had a powder keg and I attacked into it. So we found out what the templating on Goblin Vandal was, that it's not an activate ability like it reads on the card, even though the colon is there. We found out that the change to that card was that it changed to a trigger and replacement effect, similar to how Ophidian was. So when I paid the mana, that should never have been an opportunity where he could stifle that ability. And because of that, it didn't end up actually mattering in that spot, but that's something I mentioned at the end of the broadcast. I want to mention in here, just in case people are starting to play Goblin Vandal. It hasn't been too popular up until recently, but I would expect to see more copies of it, so you should know how it works, and that if your opponent allows you to pay the mana, they cannot stifle it at that point.
Benefit of Moto, because I'm like, I've seen it against you, so like I see that. It's how I learned Decree was like 2 triggers when you cycle it, like the draw and the X. I wouldn't know that without Moto. Like just
exactly. And so he stifled the trigger, and then I just overloaded the keg and still had a bunch of backup for the rest of the stuff. And I won that in 3. I had talked to Mike at the beginning of the tournament, and it was funny. I said, "Hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I've been reading your articles for a long time. You've really influenced how I play as a Magic player." And Mike's deadpan response to that was, "I am so sorry for that. Hopefully, I can make it up to you someday." And I was like, "Yep, that is. I should have expected a response like that, but it was awesome. It was a great event." Getting to meet Mike, getting to meet Lanny, getting to meet Lan, getting to see SWB and Andy again. It was awesome. So I had a really good time, and I'd be saying that regardless of whether I won or not. Round 5, I played against David. He had Dreadnought as well too. I had a very bad misread on him. There was someone with the last name that began with D that was on black-white control, and I, for some reason, thought that was with the first name. So I thought he was on black-white control. So I just kept my 7. I didn't mulligan that one, and he Dreadnoughted me on turn 2, and I was like, well, I misread this situation horribly. Then game 2, again, my 7 was awesome. I had a bunch of spells and creatures that dealt with the spells dealt with the Dreadnought, the creatures dealt with his life total. And then game 3 was the one where I shipped back a hand that was only answers and didn't have creatures. And in that game is where I made my second mistake. And that was just a games rule violation, technically, I guess, where he had a Dreadnought, I Mogg Salvaged, he response gushed, and then countered it. And then I go, Mogg Salvage. And he said, I don't have any more islands in play. And I said, oh, yep, I can't do that one. It's just not always free. You actually do have to have the island in play. And then I cast Overload and killed it anyways. Again, none of my mistakes were punished at any point. No justice there.
Again, another reason to be on Moto, just saying.
Yeah,
That's right.
Exactly. I've been slowly coming around to it. Time is my biggest constraint, really. But I should probably be on Moto. I've learned that the last couple of weeks. The next round, it's like, okay, 5-0, double draw, let's go. I look and I see there's only 3 of us, so one of us is going to get paired down. And I was the lucky person to get paired down. However, in the grand scheme, it did not end up mattering. I played against Brian on Replenish. I got game 1, and he got me in game 2 and game 3. I will say game 3 is the only time I felt I was unlucky the whole tournament, in that every draw step was a land except for 1. But the roles were reversed in the top 8 where he got very unlucky against me. And I will take that 10 times out of 10 if that's how that trade-off goes. So I lost that one. I'm thinking, am I going to be able to draw? It looked like it was potentially a gray area, but my tiebreakers were at 70%. And the other 2 towards the bottom were like 54 and 58. And everyone else had to play. I was the only table that could draw because my breakers were so good. I got paired up. So I took a little bit of a gamble saying I was calculating the math, but it was really a gut feel. There was no math calculation being done there. And reached out to Hodge afterwards. Hodge said it should be good. JP said you should be 7th. You shouldn't even be worried about 8th. And he was right. I was 7th. And we made the top 8.
You had a pretty big sweat, though.
I was sweating like crazy. Yeah.
I could feel it through the Discord, and he's trying to just like crack jokes and keep things chill. Yeah. Where I said, hey, if you come in 9th, we'll rebrand as the Bubblecast or something.
That's what exactly. I was like, hey, regardless of what happens, we have something good for the podcast. We get to talk about why you should not draw when you're not certain.
And I was trying to back up JP in there too, because I'm like, I asked you to see the standings as well, and I'm like, yeah, everything should be completely safe here for you. And I'm like, I felt confident, but I knew once again as well, like Chris says, I could feel it. I'm like, sometimes even just in general as people, you can have like all the logic you maybe want for something, but if there's any like non-certainty, you just always have to wait and see no matter what you're told.
Yeah, I think I said to Hodge in Discord or maybe it was my friend Anthony, I can't remember. I said it to someone. I'm probably like 99.9% in this spot, but that 0.1% is driving me insane right now. I was going a little crazy, but it worked out. I was the 7th seed. There was no reason to ever be worried. Got paired against Valkyrie on land still, which was a pretty good matchup for me. Game 1, she stalled on lands and deployed a standstill to slow things down. We played draw go for probably about 12 turns until the end of her turn. There was a cleanup phase, and I said, hold on, I'm going to cast some spells. I think 3 of them got countered, untapped, cast a bunch more spells, sacked some Barbarian Rings, and that game was over. So game 2, I was very creature heavy, and my plan was just to jam as much damage through as possible. They're probably going to get removed, whether it's through a Wrath effect, through some Decree tokens, but to just overload the board as much as possible so standstill can't be cast, because that hand was not good in playing the waiting standstill game. And I had a Fire Blast and a Curse Scroll that I knew I could close the game out with. And that's how that game went. I think she was mana constrained. I think at one point only had one blue and one white. I can't recall off the top of my head, but she had some mana issues. And again, I got very lucky throughout this entire tournament. I said it in the interview afterwards. You have to get lucky to win a tournament. Just how it broke.
Well, I've never played against Valkyrie, but I've seen her play, and I think she's the fastest control
She played really
player
well.
I've
She
ever
played really,
seen.
really well.
Do you
Yes,
stand by
yes, absolutely.
She plays at a lightning pace consistently at all times, despite playing the slowest.
Yes,
I did play. Yeah, I played against her when I was playing Blue Black Tide Control at a regional. She was on land still, and just very fast, very confident. Just knows what she's doing, the lines to take. Really impressed.
I would agree with that. It felt like being on a chess clock, and quite honestly, that's how I like playing Magic. So it was very quick back and forth match, which she unfortunately was just unlucky in. But I want to touch upon in that matchup that I made my third mistake of the tournament, or fourth. I can't remember how many we were counting at this point. I made a mistake here. And I was attacking my two creatures, which were both Mogg Fanatic. And she was at 8 or 10 or something like that. And I knew I was going to lock it up with Curse Scroll. It must have been 8. Lock it up with Curse Scroll and Fire Blast. And she made 2 tokens with Decree and blocked my Mogg Fanatics. And I said, yeah, they can trade. So they're just sacking them and throwing them at her face. And that was the most egregious play I probably made on the whole day. I gave her an extra draw step. It didn't end up mattering because I think she had to cycle 2 decrees for nothing to try and dig some way out of it, because she knew I had Fire Blast in my hand, obviously, because of Curse Scroll. And it didn't end up mattering. But that was always slow down, because, again, the match was going fast. And usually that's a spot where that favors me. But I think her pushing the pace got me to make a mistake. That's just something to think about. If things are going fast and you feel like you're getting flustered, maybe slow down. And that's not a spot I normally find myself in. So
It's also always important too. And I've been so bad about this in the past too, where I feel it's better now too. It's when you realize you make a mistake, even like mid game as well, it's good to not let it get to you and still just focus on, okay, I made this mistake, but let's think of still the next best thing I can do from here on out with what has happened, because it'd be such a big difference if you're just constantly thinking about it.
Yep, absolutely. So I got my rematch against Brian on Replenish. He was the 6 seed, I was the 7, so he got to be on the play. He had some very unfortunate draws. He mulliganed, I think, both games. He definitely mulliganed the second game. And in the first game, his frantic search into Replenish only got 2 Parallax Waves, which didn't matter at that point because my creatures had already done some damage, and one of them was Mogg Fanatic, which I got to sack to deal 1 more. I had 3 Curse Scrolls in play that game, which may seem unlucky, but at that point, Curse Scroll is what was doing the heavy lifting, so drawing any 1 mana spell I was happy to have. And having all of those Curse Scrolls in play gave me a lot of protection against Seal of Cleansing, which I didn't know if he had in the main deck or not. I maybe should have paid more attention. But either way, having all 3 of them, I felt like I was in an unlosable position, even if he got a Decree in play. And then game 2 was the Wasteland game, where I Wastelanded him. He frantic searched in response. I didn't know if it was going to be frantic search. I didn't know if it was going to be intuition. I had the Red Blast ready to go. I think if you watch, I had the Red Blast on camera before he even had his spell on camera. I was Red Blast that. He never got a 3rd land, and the game was just over. So, again, very lucky. But that was also off the back of Wasteland, which was the design of the deck. That Replenish was a deck I did not have as many sideboard cards as I normally would. I normally would have 5, maybe 6 blasts, which they were saying on commentary that blasts aren't very good in that matchup. And I think blasts are the most important thing in that matchup, because the blue spells are the ones that matter, not the white ones. If they don't cast the blue spells, the white ones, some of them can be strong, but they're not backbreaking, and they don't just win on the
I
spot.
love Blast too, and this isn't even just from the Terrageddon side, because I've played Sligh in the past too. I love them because I think something a lot of people don't think of is all the spells, for the most part, you're countering with Blast are attacking the mana just like you are with your Wastelands. And you talked about how before Replenish's biggest weakness still is that they're very top heavy, and attacking their mana is usually how you can, your best way to slow them down. And once again, if you're like, blasting your attunements or frantic searches, you're taking away their ability to filter through their stuff or even cheat on mana potential if they have like Ancient Tomb or something with search. And I just think that's very crucial when you're trying to be the aggressor against them, which most decks usually are trying to be when they get put in that.
Don't want to go too late against them because they're going to lock you out of the game if that's the case. So, yeah. So then on to the finals. I had a long break in between. There was a Stasis versus Growtog match that went pretty long. My match went pretty fast. Maybe it wasn't as long as I thought it was, but it felt like it was forever. Just listening to music. I do something where, and I got this from a Brian Kibler article a long time ago, where I will pick one song for a tournament and I will listen to that exact same song on loop over and over again. It gets you into a rhythm. It's just total mental game. That's all it is. But I've been doing it forever, and you can't ever reuse the song. It's if you use it for a tournament once, that's it. You don't get to use it again. So the song I had for this one was Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. So at the end of the song where you're just screaming, oh, over again, I was just driving myself insane at this point. But we stuck with it and got to the finals against Dan on Growtog. He was on the play. He was the 4 seed. I was the 7 again. He had a very non-basic land heavy hand where he took a lot of damage off of City of Brasses, and obviously Wasteland's really good in that spot. I started that game. That game, quite honestly, I felt like was probably the best game I played all day. And it really embodied, to talk about Mike Flores, who's the beatdown, because I started that game leading on Grim Lavamancer, and he played Quirion Dryad. I attacked into it because I'm willing to make that trade, given my hand was like all burn spells. It was literally like all burn spells. And he doesn't block. And I have a decision now whether to kill Quirion Dryad or not. And because he had City of Brass, and because my hand was so burn heavy, I main phased Incinerate, targeting his face. And the following turn, I forget what he did at that point. He had mana up for Counterspell. I untapped. I drew Volcanic Hammer, which is why I didn't Volcanic Hammer the previous turn. I think he swords my Lavamancer and had 2 mana up. That's what it was. He swords my Lavamancer, had 2 mana up, and I Volcanic Hammer his face again. And he plays Counterspell. And Quirion Dryad is now a 3/3 at this point. And my hand is not as full of burn as much anymore. So I said, okay, I've got Lightning Bolt with my last mana, and I'm going to kill Quirion Dryad. And now we're going to take over this game with Curse Scroll. I was able to pivot from being highly aggressive, but that was the plan the whole time, was if this gets countered, I'm killing the Dryad, and if it doesn't get countered, I'm passing the turn. And we're going to see what happens. We can waste that mana and burn him, because even if that Dryad gets high enough, I think I'm going to be able to burn him out. Maybe that was too aggressive, maybe not, but at least in my head, I felt like I played that game really well, and I was very proud with how it went. Maybe I wouldn't feel that way if he didn't counter the hammer and I didn't kill the Dryad. Who knows? Well, I don't know. I don't know what the rest of his cards in his hand were.
You played that game so well. I love how you attacked into the Dryad like a boss. That was sick.
Yeah, when he didn't block, I felt really good about that, because that feels like a trade he should be wanting to make. And then that kind of gave me a little bit of information that, this Lavamancer is going to get removed anyway, so at least I got a point of damage out of it. Because I did know he had 3 Fire Ice. Not that I'd had a second creature to deploy with that hand, but I wouldn't have in that spot because he didn't block. But it ended up being Swords of Plowshare. Game 2, I deviated from my sideboard plan a little bit, just because of how good Curse Scroll was there. And I played I only boarded out one instead of all three, and got max punished by drawing two of them. I think I even put one to the bottom on a mulligan or something. I remember drawing the second one and being pretty upset about that. I had the red blast. I kept a hand. No, I definitely kept 7 because there was a red blast in it. I red blasted his Psychatog. He played a second Psychatog, and I didn't run another red blast. And I had all these Wastelands in my hand, and he had 3 basic islands in play and no non-basics. He had the mocks. That was the one point all day where Wasteland was just absolutely atrocious. They're just rotting in my hand. And maybe it was a mistake there to not deploy them sooner, because I did draw a red blast after he played Armageddon. I didn't think he had Armageddon, quite honestly, because then maybe I do deploy the Wastelands instead of the red blast, instead of the mountain, and have a red blast miracle draw off the top, which it was there, but I couldn't cast it. And just lost to a Psychatog. I even revealed the red blast on camera because I wanted people to see. Just be a showman there. There's no reason to conceal information. He knows I have that card in my deck.
I remember we were talking about whether or not if the Growtog deck was running Moxes or not, since there is the Moxless versions, and we were like, I think they're not, because you didn't see him for a while. He didn't show up in game 1 at all. I was pretty sure on that. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting, because then you might not think of stuff like Armageddon, for instance, if you think they're not on the Mox build, for instance, and it's just so interesting.
Yeah, he only had 1 Mox in his deck. I did know that, but I didn't think he had Armageddon, just with 1 Mox. I was wrong about that, and got thoroughly punished. That was the one time I think I got punished for a sequencing all tournament. So that was my first loss in the top 8, but I'm still up to get, not up, but we're even, and I get to be on the play for game 3. And that game just felt like it was not breaking my way at all. Just everything just felt like it was going wrong. My creatures were getting answered, my spells were getting countered, and he had a Psychatog in play. So there's the turn that obviously everyone saw that took a very long time. I think Dan was justified in taking the time that he took. It was a very crucial turn. He was going for lethal. There were like 20 micro decisions in that entire turn of which cards to pitch, what to do with the Portent once he saw there were Fire Blasts on top. I don't think he is in a spot to even think about it if I play Wooded Foothills instead of Mountain. I played the Mountain knowing that I had the option to kill the Quirion Dryad because I had Fire Blast. And if I play the Wooded Foothills, then I have it on board face up with Seal of Fire and Barbarian Ring. And I felt my best chance of winning the game was if he went for it. He had a bunch of cards in hand. I didn't know that most of them were blanks in that spot. I think he had a Seal Cleansing. So I said, he's got these lands with 1 counter on them. Those are going to go to the graveyard. Let's see if he goes for it and see if I can get into a resource fight where then he has nothing left and I can go off the top. And then if he doesn't go for it, I had 8 points of burn and he was at 10. So I felt good regardless of what happened in that spot. Obviously, he went for it. I killed the Quirion Dryad, Portent Trigger on the stack. I sacked Seal of Fire, and I killed Psychatog. The card I drew for turn was Jackal Pup. His only card in play was City of Brass. And he had 1 card in hand. And maybe it was premature to think this, but in that moment, I knew I won the tournament. Maybe I could have got punished some way, but it just felt Jackal Pup in play, City of Brass in play, opponent at 10. Didn't matter. I was going to eventually close it out, even if the pup only connected once. Ended up drawing Lightning Bolt off the top, my very favorite VV's Thunder Magic. I was so excited when that was the card that I drew because everyone hates it so much, but I love it. I love it. And I think even Brian in the Swiss, when I played against him, he goes, why would you ever play with something that ugly or something to that effect? And I was like, that's the exact reason why, because everyone hates it and I love it.
That's me with my SpongeBob basic lands. I always have them, and I've been told multiple times when there's a SpongeBob basic next to a Mox Diamond, it makes people feel a certain way.
That's awesome. And if there are cards you like, just play them. Don't worry about anyone else. There's so many versions of so many cards. I know some people like the older versions. I like the older versions of a lot of cards. I like that lightning bolt a lot, and it just felt very poetic for that to be the card to end the tournament. I made sure to do that at his face instead of his creature.
I know I've been hating on that particular art, but you sold me on it. I think I'm going to get one to at least have you sign it for me, and maybe I'll throw it in my slide next time.
Absolutely. I'm not going to lie. I was looking to see if a playmat existed for that card. It does not. So we might have to get one custom made. But awesome. That was the tournament. The second I drew that lightning bolt, I blacked out. I went down, I talked about the deck. I probably repeated a lot of the stuff on here that I said on there. And it was the best feeling in the world. Winning a Magic tournament is awesome. Highly recommend it if you have the opportunity to do so. There is no better feeling than winning, not even just tournaments, but winning games, winning matches of Magic. It's so fun. That's why we do it. I had a blast, and literally Red Elemental or Fire Blast. And yeah, I just can't thank the people of Sacred Torch enough for running that event and giving me the opportunity to walk away with the plaque.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I'm sure people may have questions about anything specific. I am writing a tournament report where I go through the specifics of the deck choice. I'm about a third of the way through it. I'm hoping to have it out in the next couple days. I think I'll probably create a Substack is probably the best way to get that out there, and we'll tweet it. We'll put it on the website, and we'll figure some ways to get it out there. But I appreciate everyone listening. I've been talking for a very long time. My throat's getting a little scratchy. Do any of you guys have something you want to talk about so I can take a little bit of a break?
Small thing. I had one small thing. It's quick, I promise. Don't worry. Actually, because it's related to Neal. Like I said, there was a time where I was playing Sligh for several months in pre-modern. I probably don't have as many reps as any of you, but something I was always high on for the longest time was Price of Progress, where so many of my lists I would have even 4 within the 75. And I love that because of you playing Wasteland as well, that you have 0 price because of the anti-synergy that could be there too. And I just think that's a cool little detail where it might be like, oh, like for me, for instance, if I'm trying to build a different Sligh list, I'm like, oh, I gotta have my 4 price in the board. And you fall into these patterns sometime of decks, especially the more you play them, of oh, I need to play this always and always need to play this. But then when you make such adjustments, it's cool also to think of, oh, actually, this becomes a bit of a nombo now, and I get to use those slots in something else. And I just thought that was cool.
Would you all believe that the first iteration of the deck, the one I played at ELD, had 3 Price of Progress in the main deck and 1 in the sideboard?
Oh yeah, dude, I've done like 2 main, 2 side, I think too. I love it so much.
We found out very quickly, especially in the testing with Chris, that card was bad. That card did nothing. It was a 2-mana shock a lot of the time. Whether there were Zuran Orbs, whether you've already blown up stuff with Wasteland and then you have it, whether you have your own Wasteland in play or a Barbarian Ring in play and you deal damage to yourself. Price of Progress was just terrible in this version of the deck. And I want to caveat this version of the deck because I think it can be very good in other versions. Yeah. But in this version, it was atrocious. And we cut that very quickly and was very happy to have Earthquake instead of Price of Progress. And having Volcanic Hammer be, I think we started with 2 hammer and went up to 3. And that was the Price of Progress replacement because I'd rather take the 3 guaranteed, and it clears a elephant if I need that too as well.
But I love once again that sometimes if people are making changes to a deck where it might just be the mana base, you might think, oh, I don't need to change my spells at all here. And that's the Price, and Wasteland specifically is just such a good example of always got to reevaluate everything when you make a change.
Yep. I heard this from our LobsterCon champion, Brian. Every deck should just be built for the tournament you're playing it in. And that is what we did with this one. And for anyone thinking about copying it for your local tournament, I would strongly suggest, if you got a lot of Dreadnought and Sligh in your meta, this is the perfect deck for you. If you don't, I would strongly suggest trying to figure out how you want to attack the metagame and build your sideboard and main deck like that, because there's so many options and configurations you have with Sligh, and just copying them from tournament to tournament is not going to lead to the most success. Cool. So that's enough from me. I did a lot of talking. People are probably getting bored of it by now. We said it at the top of the podcast. I'll say it at the end of the podcast. This is Magic the Gathering's best format. And if you're not playing, you're missing out. But I appreciate you, Shane, for coming on. Sam, I appreciate you making your debut on here. Chris, as always, you gave the advice for the tournament. Wouldn't have had the finish that I had if it wasn't for you. And obviously you had your finish as well too. So we are Squeeze House of Champions this week. Appreciate everyone for listening. This was Fact or Fiction, and we will see you at the beginning of the next upkeep. Thank you, everyone.